is going against the fundamental rootedness of your own predisposition. And yet, so Avraham is able to do this. So in a way, it's what's being asked from Avraham is to kill somebody else, and his son. And Avraham is steeped in this kind of kindness. So it's very difficult for him. Yitzchak is a very tough character. Pakat Yitzchak. And he's the opposite of his father. He's Gevurah, he's justice. Well, it's only just. God gives life, he can order and take it away whenever he pleases. And I, his humble servant, are only too glad to go along with this. And so since he actually wills himself dead, then he goes, that's another reason why. How is it that Avraham waited so long to marry Rocky? 37 years old, come on already, you know? He's like the ultimate mirror. But when's he waiting? He's waiting because Yitzchak had a soul that was feminine.
Feminine soul.
That was right. Feminine. And it was bound up with the soul of Sarah. That's why when Yitzchak willed himself dead, you know who died at the same moment?
Wow.
Right? And the second soul that came down was masculine. That's why right after the Akedah, Avraham really says, okay, you know, it's time to marry him off.
No, but the Torah itself says that's when that's the point.
I thought the Zohar says he gets a female soul.
No, the other way around.
The other way around.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Rivka's a Gilgal of Sarah?
What?
Rivka's a Gilgal of Sarah?
No. Rivka was born, and the reason, I once heard from the Navardik of Rosh Hashiva, the great Reb Avraham, why does the Parsha end that Avraham is informed that Rivka was born? Because you think after all of this he'd come home to a great welcome, and instead he comes home, his wife of so many years, who he loved so much, is dead. And then he figures out what happened, and she heard, and he's thinking to himself, Avraham says, God, I should have listened to my friends, Enna, Eshkol, and Mamre. They had daughters. They wanted to marry Yitzchak. If I would have married off Yitzchak years ago to one of their daughters, and they were all tzaddikim, right?
Wow.
Then, even if later on God would have told me to sacrifice Yitzchak, Rivka would have been happy because she probably would have had grandchildren by that time. Sarah would have been happy because she probably would have had grandchildren by that time. So Avraham is being told, no. Keep cool. It's not like that. Rivka was born. Before that, he had no children. That's right.
But your question is good, because if it's true that Rivka was born the moment that Sarah was far past from this world, and of course that when Yitzhak came into the tent and he saw, and
right,
the Torah
that's why
says,
I thought of that. Exactly.
V'hinei,
right.
It's almost it's as if it says he sees his mommy.
It's
he
begging
sees
the
his Ima when he sees Rivka.
Right.
So there's a deep connection, obviously.
Right, and don't forget that the son is more likely to marry somebody
who's like
his mother.
Whatever that means.
But if he had a soul of a woman, that wouldn't have been true, which would be his first soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
So coming back to the Abraham, Hesed, Yitzchak is Gevurah. One is the right side of the tree of life, the other is the left. Akedah is the first test to try to unify the right and the left.
The result.
What is born out of it?
Yaakov.
Well, there's no Yaakov at this stage. I know
You're
that
asking me
Yaakov
what's
is
born
the
out of
first.
it. The Yaakov then carries on the tradition. He's like the third leg. Okay?
Right.
And so what happens is in Yaakov you see both. You see, Abraham is not like Yitzchak. Yitzchak is a guy who, if it's dark outside, he waits for darkness to change into light. Right? He never leaves Israel. All right, he wants to, God tells him not, but he never leaves Israel. Whereas Abraham is going left l'chol, but when there's a famine in the land, he's straight, hey, you got to go where the food is. So Abraham believes, in a sense, b'chol asher tasa, the more you do to help yourself, the greater the blessing. Yitzchak goes, no, you do anything as small as it might be, and God can give the biggest blessing. I see it's dark outside, I'll wait for the darkness to come into light. Now if you take Yaakov,
You once told me, one is the light in the darkness, and the other one is
the light to come in from the outside in a way. But if you take Yaakov, now Yaakov has both. So on the one hand, he's like Yitzchak in that he prepares to do battle with Esav. He's like Avraham, like he prepares to see the Dura and the Choma. You're a practical man. Like Avraham goes down to Mitzrayim, no food, right? On the other hand, he's willing to run away with just the clothes on his back and say, listen, God, I'm completely dependent on you. Give me lechem lechel, beged lilvosh, bring me back to you. Total acts of faith, right? So you see in his life, sometimes he's a little bit like his father. Sometimes he's like Avraham.
Yes.
With Akedah, as an entity on the tree of life, what is it? Because it's the unification of Hasadim with Gevurot. And there's no Jacob at that stage. There's only one thing that's unifying Hasadim and Gevurot before that. It's Das.
Yeah, okay, well that would...
Is this the Das experiment, the reaching to Das?
I'll say Das.
The idea of the Akedah is almost like the Mizbeach later, right? And that's, the Mizbeach is a place that allows for transformation. I really want to get back to Reb Avraham, but I'll tell you one thing. One time, the Zohar says that the great Rebbe Avraham was traveling. He had his students with him. And he came to a rose bush. And he plucked the rose. And the students were almost out of their minds. Rebbe Avraham would never disturb nature, especially for his own benefit or pleasure. Why did he pluck a rose for? And then he starts fingering the rose, right? So somebody comes over to him and says, Rebbe, why did you pluck this rose? So he says, Kishoshana ben HaChochem Kingra Yossi ben Abonos, that the Jewish people are like a rose amongst thorns. Wow. He says, now take a look. By the way, I don't know if anybody's a specialist on roses here, but if you go and want to spend a lot of money on roses, you'll find a certain kind of roses, and if you do this to it, the red is like a powder, and underneath is white.
Wow.
And so, is white. And so he's fingering the rose, and it's one of those roses. And as he does that to it, the red
turns into
and underneath is white.
Wow.
So he says, what are the Jews compared to those for? Because look at all that they suffer. And yet, they manage to get through it, right? No matter how grating, like rubbing, until when they get through the din, they get through the harsh decree, they get through the red, until they see the white. But you know what he says? Whether the rose is red or whether the rose is white, it still smells so beautiful. Because what is smell? Smell, you know that there's no bracha on Reah. No bracha on Rova. There's no after bracha on Reah. Why? Because you don't get physically satiated from the scent. You smell the chicken soup and you follow your nose and you get to the pot. Maybe it should be tofu, I don't know what I'm talking about. The bottom line is you get over there and you enjoy. But so really scent has to do with process.
Ruach, Reah.
Right, scent, Reah, has to do with process. The Jews are constantly in process. Then Reb Avraham says one thing, this is why I'm telling you this. He says, where else do you see it? He says, could you imagine that there's a mikdash, there's the Mizbeach, and they bring an offering there. Kill the animal. What's the predominant color on the Mizbeach?
Red.
Red. And when they light the fire, and the korban is consumed, what's the predominant color? White, the ashes.
Same thing with the Ketorah. The Ketorah
So
is a lot of red elements, but it becomes white smoke. It's a transformation. Blood of birth, milk of breastfeeding. The transformation of red into white is what the Zohar is constantly into.
Right. So basically the Mizbeach is a place of transformation. And it's also Das. Because what is Das? Das is chibur, is always connection. Anytime you see that word Das, it has to do with connection. So let's say the Ha'odam Yodas Chava Ishto, that the man knew Eve his wife. So in other words, it's bringing together masculine and feminine. What's wrong with the Eitz Das Tov and Ra that makes it so dangerous? Because Tov and Ra intermingle, and that's Das, right? It's the Eitz Hadas of Tov and Ra. Tov and Ra come together to get Das. There's only one place